Welcome back to the Lights Out Podcast. I am the MMA Detective, Mike Davis. In these Gerald Strebendt Rafiel Torre Murder Tapes, on the first episode, we gave you just a nice, juicy, just tidbit of what you guys are going to experience. On the second episode, we brought it all the way back to the beginning. In this episode, we listen to Gerald build his foundation of how he knows Rafiel, and then it transitions into what exactly he knows and what has taken place. This is a pivotal moment. If you're a police officer on this case, to even get this far, you've checked off a lot of boxes. You've jumped over a lot of hurdles, and you've got some credibility. So let's watch and hear how Gerald handles himself.
You called and you ended up getting a hold of our division, and ultimately you got transferred to a call at my desk. And during our conversation initially, you were very, very concerned about disclosing your name for your own safety because you had information in regards to the murder of Brian Richards. And ultimately, you and I set up a day to meet, which was Saturday. We spoke on a Friday.
It was the next day we met.
And we ended up meeting on Saturday with Detective Espinoza and I at a park in Los Angeles, and we won't go into where or when and all that stuff. But and during that conversation, you were again very concerned about your safety and threat against your life for coming forward in this homicide investigation. And we're very concerned that we just talk in confidentiality, and you just give us a little bit of information regarding this case just to let us know that you were serious about your knowledge. And from there we worked on some things, some requests that you had, and we were able to meet up with most of those. And we're here today to talk about the investigation in great detail. And then you're going to be leaving for Oregon right after that. And then for the next couple months you'll be unavailable, traveling to different parts of the country, or the world, I should say. Your biggest concern in this particular case is obviously your safety. You're very concerned that Rafiel Torre is going to have some way to get to you, or obviously cause harm to you. Okay. And so, but as we're sitting here right now, the real request that you have right now is that everything remain confidential from this until some decision is made on prosecution and
charges are filed.
My whole thing is obviously, the concealed weapon permit that I really would like didn't go through.
No.
It's not even being considered.
No.
And I need to be able to get out of California. I want to go overseas. I'm going overseas regardless.
Right.
And it's draining me completely financially to be hiding the way I want to hide.
Right.
So I was looking for some sort of outing, like maybe the insurance company would offer a reward for somebody who would save them some money, but I don't know how any of that stuff works.
Okay.
And we discussed about how the only reward money is from the family, and as horrible as that is, I need that money to hide and go do my thing and get away. So because I'm not going to be fighting for a while on pay-per-view now, I'm going to be kind of hiding out, laying low. So I don't want, what I would hate to have happen is to face Rafiel, go against him, this way and testify against him, and then have him not go to jail for life and we meet him up somewhere in a dark alley.
Okay. I don't believe that will be the case here at all. Like I said, I think what's going to happen here is a decision will be made, not by us, but by someone else, and only at that point would anything be made discoverable. But let me just, you hit on one note there a second ago as far as reward money. Let me, just so that you're clear, I don't have anything to do with the reward money. We don't deal with that at all. And what happened in this particular case is some reward money came forward, and we received a letter from the attorneys in the matter stating that there was an amount of reward money available, and it's very clearly stated that it's upon successful conviction.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Now,
and my only question to that is, I'm going to do everything I can. Obviously, I came forward to make this whole process start. I really want him to be arrested, and I want him to pay for what he did. Now, is there anything that's going to disqualify me, for the reward? I mean, I know it's hard for you to say because you don't know what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
But what are the big things? Obviously, you guys know, the level of involvement in this on my part is just to survive. I'm going to give you guys.
That's an impossible question for me to answer.
Okay.
I can't answer that question. If you see me falling real behind, just slow down a little bit.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I've known Rafiel Torre since I was a little kid. We were from the same hometown in Oregon, Coos Bay, Oregon, and he's always ran a successful martial arts gym there. And he has a reputation for being fraudulent in his claims of fame as a martial artist and these things, and those have carried with him. Those have been floating around our town for years. So he's always had some sort of question to his credibility. And but regardless of that, the opportunity came for me to train with him, and I took the opportunity to train with him. He has newspaper articles on himself, that says he fought here and did this, and he has all these claims and belts and trophies, and all that stuff. When you're a young kid, looks nice and flashy, But in all the time I've known him, since maybe I was 9 years old, I've known who he is, and I'm 24 now, and he was like kind of famous in our hometown for being a tough guy. He was always out at the local bars. Got in a lot of fights and competed in a lot of tournaments. And he's just the kind of guy that everyone in the community kind of looked up to as a martial artist. Like, he's the best guy. I can't believe he's in our hometown. And what happened is I never got to train with him. But one unique thing that happened is my uncle married this lady. Her name is Randy Torre, or now is Randy Torre. Her name's Randy. And they got a divorce. And then she married Rafiel. So I grew up with this lady, Randy, is my aunt. I grew up at their house, staying the night and having barbecues. So now she's married to Rafiel, so now there's my connection. I get to actually meet him, in person and watch him compete and do these things. So I look up to this guy, and, that's it. I never trained with him at that point. I just looked up to him, and I heard the reputation around town about his fighting and all this. Well, I'll take you back now. 10 years later, I sign up for the Marines, and I'm stationed in a little base out in the middle of the desert here, 29 Palms. And lo and behold, one day I'm walking on base, and someone yells my name from a car. And nobody ever calls me by my first name, so I knew it was somebody from back home. But I looked over there, and it's Randy, and Rafiel's driving a car, and they're like, "Gerald, it's us, we work on base. We're both lifeguards here on base." So it was a real, coincidence that they're there, and they were looking for me because they knew I was stationed there. They kept track of me. So we start training, and he's supposedly a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master, which turned out to be a complete fraud. But I believe it, and we start training at the gym on base, and I start bringing in more Marines. And before you know it, we have such a group of Marines training on the base. He approaches me with an idea to open a gym. And I was really impressionable. Here's the guy that everyone's always talked about, and he seems to be the best, So the problem is he doesn't have the money to finance the gym. So he tries to do some conniving and get money. He can't, and he comes to me and he says, "The only opportunity we can have to open a gym is if you loan me the money." And he knew that I had just come back from deployment, so I had a lot of money in my bank account saved. So I took out $5,500, and we wrote up a contract, which I have in Oregon, and I gave him $5,500 cash to open a jiu-jitsu academy in town. So he opened the gym. It was very successful, had a lot of Marines, and the gym was going well, but he wasn't making his monthly payments to me. That comes into play later. He was never making these monthly payments that he was telling me, "I'm putting it all in an account, $333 a month for however many months, and it's going to be, even more than what you loan me. I'm going to pay you back a little bit extra." And then one month he had to borrow a little bit of money from me, another $1,000, which is awkward, but I loaned him another $1,000, so now he's into me for $6,500. And our relationship started to go a little bit sour because I realized my money wasn't being put in my account. And but he had such a name in martial arts. He'd been tricking all these websites and magazines to where he was working for them, writing articles and doing interviews. And he was making a lot of money, so I just put my faith in him that, okay, 1 month he's going to have a good month and he's going to pay me back. Well, it never happened, and I'd been training for a year and 4 months, and we had the offer to fight my very first no-holds-barred fight, So I went to Arizona and I fought my no-holds-barred fight, and I came back, and we resumed our training, but I was starting to realize that he had a lot of, internal issues, with drugs and with his money spending habits, and I realized that he was getting the better of me and taking advantage of me in a lot of ways, for how much a trainer takes out of the fighter's purse and things. So I started to lose a lot of trust and a lot of faith in him. And not to mention, a lot of legitimate martial artists had told me, "Hey, that guy is a fraud. He hasn't done what he said he did." And so I looked into it, and sure enough, the guy was, a scam artist, complete through and through, and had been since I was 9 when I first heard it when I was a little kid, to stay away from this guy. So I went to train. I got out of the Marines. I fought in April. April 21st was my first fight. I got out of the Marines in May, and I went to live in this fighting academy in Orange County.
What year? May
97.
Okay.
No. I joined in 97, 2001. I got out in 2001.
Okay. May of 2001.
May of 2001, I got out of the Marine Corps on terminal leave, which meant I had enough leave dates saved up where I got out of the Marine Corps, but and I was still on their payroll for another month.
Right.
So I went and I moved into Orange County. So I'd parted with Rafiel, but we had discussed it. And it was okay. I was going to train there for the summer and come back. So I went to Orange County and trained for the summer, and he was getting really jealous. I was fighting a lot, having success, and my other trainer in Orange County was getting the credit for it. So he kept telling me, you have to come back this month, you have to come back next month. So we made a deal where I would come back, and I would come back up there after the 3-month or 4-month summer. So I went back up there maybe the end of August or September time frame, and right away when I got up there, I'd realized the difference in the guy since I had been gone. He was completely, into the club scene, doing ecstasy, selling ecstasy to his friends, even smoking weed, which he always hated, and drinking a lot. He was completely out of shape, and it was an embarrassment to be around him. He made me look bad as a trainer. He was completely unsat for a martial artist. So like a few days later, I got a call to fight again, and I said, I can't train with this idiot and be prepared for this fight. I'm going back to Orange County with the real trainers. So I went back there, and I told him I was going to come back, after that and train again. But I got down there and started training, and I realized that, I need to part ways with this guy. He had some deep issues, and during one of these trips from the 760 area code, I don't remember that county, San Bernardino County.
Right.
From one of these trips when he was living up in Rancho Cucamonga, down to LA, is when I really realized this guy, is over the line. He's a complete fool. We're driving down there, and at this time he's seeing this woman named Angel, and I believe her last name was Richardson. Her husband took her husband's name, and he's seeing this woman, and they're having an affair behind her husband's back.
Do you remember what month this was, approximately?
This would have been about maybe October time frame, roughly. It's been 2 years ago, so it would have been roughly the October time frame.
Of 2001.
Yeah, of 2001.
Okay.
And my fight was in November, so it was about the October time frame roughly. And we're driving back down, and I have spent a lot of time, up in Rancho Cucamonga, these last couple weeks visiting with Angel. And I even met her husband, Brian, and we'd even all gone out to a club, Margaritaville, together.
When you're dealing with a witness, especially one that is a confidential informant, credibility is everything. There's so many games that these people play, and your job sitting on the other side of the desk is to kind of suss out what's real, what is BS, and then kind of what are they doing just to try to make themselves look better. In this instance, you can hear Gerald is straight the entire way. In the second episode, he talked about, I think it was actually the first episode, he talked about the reward money. And in this instance, his life legitimately is in danger. And you're going to kind of get a little taste of it on what you hear next. But the reality of the situation is on the next tape, it's as plain as day of just how much danger he's in. So credibility, past the bar, and now we're on to what exactly he knows and how it went down.
So, I spent time with them. I went to their house and had dinner with them, and as we were coming back down, Rafiel tells me that things are really serious with him and Angel, and he asked me...
Is this just you and Rafiel in the car?
Yeah, just us in the car
Okay.
this time. And we're driving to Hollywood to do some training with a guy in Hollywood. So he starts hinting at something, and I realized what he was hinting at. He said, he told me that Angel wishes that she could just be rid of Brian. She just wishes he's such a bad guy to her. All these things, typical things some jealous, boyfriend would say about someone's husband. Oh, he treats her horrible. And he's like, yeah, she just wishes that he was dead. And I looked at him and listened to him, and he said that she would even go so far as to pay somebody $10,000 if they would get rid of him for her. And I just squashed it as soon as I could. He asked me, because I was a sniper in the Marines, and I'm also a pro fighter. So he's asking me, he said, what would I think, about that, and
What did you take that to mean, though? Was he trying to hire you?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly how I took it.
Did he come outright and say, hey, I'll pay you $10,000, or Angel will pay you $10,000?
Angel would.
And he's, in the words that he came at you with, was it, hey, Gerald, Angel will pay you $10,000 if you take this guy out?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it more insinuated, or was it direct?
It was direct. I mean, I know how Rafiel works. I can't remember exactly the word for word, but the best that I can remember was, hey, he's driving down the road, and he says, Angel, would really like to just be rid of him, and she's willing to pay somebody $10,000. What do you think about that? And he looks at me, waiting for a response.
Okay.
And then I returned my response just as though he had just directly said, will you do it? Because essentially, in the context and the words that he put it in, that's exactly how I took it. And when I answered him back, my answer, it was exactly as though that's what he'd asked me to do. He didn't pretend shocked, like, no, I wasn't asking you to do it.
Right.
Of course he was asking me to do it.
Right.
So my response back to him first of all, was what are you thinking? You know, there's a whole fluid thing of emotions and questions and thoughts that go through your head when somebody asks you that. And first of all, I tried to just convince him that it was ridiculous, it's stupid, you know, and I labeled the reasons why, and I made him agree with me. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What were the reasons that you used?
Well, for one thing, it's wrong. You know, the guy has 4 kids. The guy's never done anything to you.
Right.
You know, you can't just go out. It's just unacceptable. You can't just go out killing people. You know.
Right.
And for another thing, you're gonna get caught. You're not a professional. You know.
Right.
You're basically unsuccessful in everything you do anyway.
Right.
Running a business, you're gonna get caught. You know, they have all these forensics things and all these reasons why you're gonna go down in flames. I go if and he said, you know, because I was a sniper is why Angel, you know, was, you know, questioning like, hey, what about your nephew?
Right.
And he specifically said that Angel said, what about Gerald? You know, because I can shoot a rifle really well. And I told him all about terminal ballistics. You know, I go, bro, you realize you shoot somebody, you know, and I explained to him how the bullet comes out and arches down, and then they do the forensics and they realize the bullet hit at such a severe angle and they figure it had to come from 900 yards.
Right.
It's not a lot of guys that make those type of shots. I go, it's going to come back to us. We're going to go get the death penalty. Angel will probably, you know, run away with the insurance money. I go, what are you thinking? I go, this is ridiculous. And I squashed it. And I said, no, absolutely
Did he discuss insurance money with you?
Yeah, you just mentioned it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so tell
yeah,
us
he
a
did.
little about that. At that particular conversation?
Yes.
Okay, go
yes.
ahead.
He just mentioned that he has $1 million life insurance policy on him, and that they had I believe they had bills at the time, or maybe if it wasn't something to do with the bills for their house and their car payment, then it was just the fact that $1 million would set them up well, set Angel up well. So that's why she was saying, you know, yeah, $10,000, you know, would be great.
Right.
So I said, you know what? I just told him he's just completely out of touch with reality. And, you know, you have a lot of friends who say a lot of stupid things like, man, we could maybe rob a bank and get away with it. You have a lot of friends. But the tone and the way he was asking me, you know, I just tried to squash it immediately. So I convinced him, and at the end of the conversation, after I explained to him all these things about forensics, ballistics, and all these things, and the fact that it's wrong and immoral, I made him say, okay, Gerald, you're right. You know, I said, I'm right. You know I'm right.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're correct. You know, it's ridiculous. We would get caught. I made him say that.
Right.
And that was to, even though he's never, you know, he's never committed a crime to that level, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, that he understands that, you know,
You
it's
have
not,
nothing to do with it.
I have nothing to do with it. And at that point in my mind, I was thinking, what am I going to do? The guy does a lot of drugs.
Episode 3, Gerald Strebendt Rafiel Torre tapes, murder tapes is in the books, and you know, we got an interesting episode. We're into the nitty gritty now, obviously. You know, in the second episode, the main thing was Gerald Strebendt is still a confidential informant. Here, he's come in, crossed the line, is sitting across from the authorities, and telling his story and seeing, you know, whether they believe him or not. Fascinating process going on here. What do you think, Mike? What did you how'd you feel how the job went there?
Yeah, on Gerald's side, it's nerve-wracking. Like, you're caught in between wanting to tell the truth, having somebody believe you, not exaggerating, but also, like, he's in danger as well. Like, he's in legitimate danger. And the next tape that we release next week, you'll kind of understand just like how upside down he was. And when you're at this stage of the game, you're on the precipice of calling the person. And imagine calling somebody about a murder that happened a couple years ago, just to kind of, you know, talk about it just a little bit. It's not like you have the conversation and the person gets arrested. You have the conversation, that information gets brought over to the state's attorney or the district attorney, the DA, and then they either approve or deny charges. Depending on when that call takes place. If you do that on a Friday or a Saturday, you're probably waiting until Monday. It's tricky, man. It's not an easy position to be in for anybody.
Yeah, and you know, I believe it extends itself a lot more than just a weekend in this particular case. Once we head into episode 4, what we have in store for you there is something really interesting. And this is a recording that I believe was set up by the police of Gerald and Rafiel actually talking, and that will be the audio recording for episode 4. So we're going to hear Rafiel Torre's voice on tape.
Yes, and if I may give just a little bit more, like for instance, let's just say you lent money to a murderer or somebody that you know did it, and then they get even with you financially after a few years when they kind of get their radar going, and then they give you extra money. Whoo! That's when problems become increasingly dangerous.
You know, Gerald Strebendt brave for cooperating with us with this series, because you can't win everybody.
Well, he hasn't yet.
No, he hasn't. He knows and is aware it's coming out, and he hasn't actively blocked it either, which a lot of people said, no, don't do that. So I give him full credit for that. And, I think you can't please everybody. So there are some people probably who've listened so far and go, oh, I don't know if I believe him, and, probably worse than that. It's like, hey, he's full of shit, But on the factors that you got to take into account, and I think this is one of those things that is very heavy, and I think in the real life worked for Strebendt too, whether you like him or not. Look, when you knew the guy at 9 years old, you are an impressionable sponge of a person. You're not a complete person. And the effects of that over time, I think, really are baggage that Strebendt is probably still carrying to this day, because he was betrayed by somebody that he trusted, and he was 9 years old when that image started forming. So it's really very difficult to place how you would react as an adult with that type of influence. So we're going to find out more about that when there are interesting interactions between Rafiel and Gerald in episode 4. You're going to hear them talking to each other, and you can judge for yourself some of what we're talking about.
So it also I've talked to Gerald on the phone. He's hesitant about coming on. He was shocked that we had the tapes. And I said, hey, man, we're not playing all the tapes. We're just going to edit like the really important sections out of it and, put it in. I said, if you got any issues with it, I'd rather just kind of figure this out now rather than, dealing with an attorney letter. And he goes, no, man, I got nothing to hide, play it. So, I mean, he's very brave on his end, surprised the fact that we had it and, came around. And I'm thinking after these tapes are done, we might be able to do a little deep dive with him where we can go through his entire career. He also had a run-in with the law afterward, of which he's been completely exonerated of. And I think this could be part of the process to help clear his name, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. But Miguel, we've gone too long. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please like, share, subscribe.
But we're building here. Next episode, Rafiel Torre speaks to Gerald Strebendt.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.